Pep Guardiola has a reputation in certain corners of the internet for having always been at clubs with enormous resources, and for signing players who don't live up to their hefty transfer fees. Whilst there might be a modicum of truth to that claim during Guardiola's time in England, his stints at Barca and Bayern Munich weren't really categorised by reckless spending. And at Barcelona in particular, Guardiola was able to put a significant emphasis on promoting from within. Not so long ago, I took a look at what I felt were Pep's 7 worst signings of all time. But more recently, I've started a bit of a series looking at every manager's best ever signings. So far, we have taken a look at Jurgen Klopp and Jose Mourinho's finest recruits, and today we turn our attention to a 2-time Champions League winning Spaniard by the name of Josep Guardiola. Feel free to let me know in the comments which managers you would like to see featured next. Of course, it is worth emphasising that at all of Pep Guardiola's clubs, albeit to varying degrees, he was not solely responsible for those teams' recruitment policies. At Bayern Munich in particular, there is a great deal of external involvement, but I'll be taking a look at every signing made on Guardiola's watch nonetheless. And lastly, as always, these are Pep's best signings, not the best players signed by Pep, and there is a big difference between the two. Without further ado then, here are my views on Pep Guardiola's 7 greatest signings of all time. FERRAN Torres. By far the most recent signing in this entire 7, FERRAN Torres only linked up with Pep Guardiola around 5 months ago, so it's obviously very early days for the youngster at Manchester City. It also means there's every chance he could prove to be an absolute dud and make his selection in this 7 ahead of the likes of Ederson or Ilkay Gundogan seem absurd, but somehow I can't see that being the case. Manchester City dropped the ball by letting Leroy Sané depart so cheaply in the summer just gone, but they made amends with the recruitment of FERRAN Torres. Already Valencia's best player as a 20-year-old last season, Man City were able to sign Torres for €23 million, so just a touch over £20 million. That's at least 50% of what he really ought to have been worth, a discount only made possible by virtue of Torres having less than 12 months remaining on his contract at the Mestalla. Torres has great movement, he's quick, and he has a trick or two up his sleeve, but perhaps his finest attribute is his confidence and unerring self-belief. Sometimes labelled arrogant during his last season in Spain, Torres hasn't always minced his words when discussing his own talent, but sometimes that confidence is a necessary tool to make it right to the top. While some elements of life at the Etihad have gone a little stale under Pep Guardiola, Torres has been a real bright spark this season, and I expect that to continue for some time to come, and for the 20-year-old to prove himself to be an inspired signing by Pep. Dani Alves. Pep Guardiola has had lots of great fullbacks at his disposal over the years, whether it be Eric Abidal, David Alaba, or Philipp Lahm, but none who have flourished so naturally and succeeded so emphatically under him as Dani Alves. Brought to Sevilla from Brazil in 2002, Barcelona signed Alves in 2008, making him their marquee signing during Pep's first summer in charge. He didn't come cheap, setting the club back €23 million upfront with €7 million in future add-ons, or €35 million in total. No doubt those add-ons were eventually triggered since Alves became a mainstay for Barcelona over the next 8 years, where he won a staggering number of trophies. Bizarrely, despite the quality of his performances, there was no lack of criticism of Alves during his time in Catalonia, typically centred around his defensive credentials, but every one of his managers understood what he brought to the table. Under Guardiola in particular, Alves was a joy to watch, spending around 90% of the match in the opposition's half, where he developed an extraordinary understanding with the likes of Xavi, Iniesta, and most famously of all, Lionel Messi. Alves proved to be an outstanding signing by Barcelona, and the only reason he doesn't feature in the top 3 is because his €35 million fee is the largest in this 7, and by a fair distance too. THIAGO ALCANTARA. Although this was a signing made by Pep Guardiola during his time at Bayern Munich, THIAGO ALCANTARA is a man that Pep knew well from his time in Barcelona. Promoted from the Barca B team into the Barca first team by Guardiola in 2009, THIAGO featured regularly at the Camp Nou for around 18 months, despite having just come into a star-studded midfield. Whilst managers don't always have the final say on signings at Bayern Munich, as I mentioned in the introduction, Guardiola did in the case of THIAGO, later revealing, "I spoke to the club about my concept and told them why I want THIAGO. He is the only player I want. It'll be him or no one." Close quote. Guardiola got his man, and it isn't difficult to understand why Pep is such a fan of the elegant midfield playmaker who can dictate the tempo of a game and pick passes in his sleep. What is a little trickier to understand is why Barcelona, with a superb but ageing midfield at that time, allowed one of their finest La Masia graduates to depart the club for just €25 million. Nonetheless, Barcelona's loss was most assuredly Bayern Munich's gain, and Thiago swiftly became a key man at the Allianz Arena. Only ever sidelined due to injury, of which there have sadly been all too many, when he's fully fit, there are few more natural footballers on the planet at this moment in time. In a world of fitness and functionality, Thiago is like poetry in motion, and he went on to play close to 250 games for Bayern Munich before joining Liverpool in the summer just gone. Liverpool were able to sign Thiago for a cut price due to only having a year left on his deal at Bayern, but the German still sold him for more than Guardiola had paid for him back in 2013. Javier Mascherano. Into the top four, we are now dealing with truly inspired pieces of business, starting with Javier Mascherano. No one was in any doubt as to Javier Mascherano's talents back in 2010 when Pep Guardiola brought him to Barcelona, but unfortunately for Liverpool, Mascherano told the club that he wanted to leave after returning to Anfield from the 2010 World Cup. Presumably Mascherano was already aware of Barcelona's interest at the time, and his determination to leave allowed the Catalan giants to get their man for just €24 million, which apparently worked out at just a little over £17 million at the time. Prior to joining Barcelona, Mascherano had been a very effective midfield anchor who never tired of dispossessing opponents and recycling the ball. In the first half of his first season at the Camp Nou, Mascherano was largely used as a tool off the bench, brought on to solidify Barcelona's winning position late on in games. As the season went on though, with club captain Carlos Puyol struggling with injuries, Guardiola found a new role for Mascherano. He partnered Gerard Piqué at the heart of the Barcelona defence, operating as a tactically astute, ball-playing centre-back. The move proved to be a huge success, and Mascherano went on to make more than 300 appearances in 7.5 seasons in Catalonia, in addition to becoming Argentina's most capped player of all time, for now at least. Joshua Kimmich. Whilst Joshua Kimmich is an outstanding footballer who now seems born to have played at the very highest level, I'm firmly of the belief that his career might have turned out rather differently if he hadn't come under the management of Pep Guardiola upon his arrival at Bayern Munich. Signed by the Bavarians for just €7 million, what chance does the rest of German football have when the nation's biggest club can snap up someone like Kimmich for just €7 million? None is the answer, although it's worth stressing that Kimmich wasn't yet being held as the second coming of Philipp Lahm back in 2015, not least because Lahm was still playing for Bayern Munich at the time. Kimmich was clearly a talent, but he couldn't find a permanent home in any one position, and was in danger of becoming a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Pep Guardiola even trialled him at centre-back for a period of time before the German settled at right-back. Kimmich became the best right-back in world football at Bayern Munich, as far as I'm concerned, before being moved into holding midfield, where I think he is quite possibly the finest holding midfielder in world football now. Those are two half-decent achievements for a 25-year-old who is already closing in on 250 appearances for Bayern Munich, and has thrice made the Bundesliga Team of the Year, all for €7 million. A phenomenal signing, probably among the finest this century. Gerard Piqué. Gerard Piqué came through the La Masia youth ranks before Pep Guardiola returned to the club as Barca B's head coach, but he left Barcelona to join Manchester United on a free transfer in 2004, aged only 17 and yet to register his first team debut. Piqué played in defensive midfield in Barca's youth ranks, but he became a centre-back under Alex Ferguson. First team opportunities were also at a premium at Old Trafford, given the centre-back partnership of Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic, and Piqué only made 23 appearances for the Red Devils in total. In 2008, during Pep Guardiola's first summer in charge at Barcelona, Piqué was brought back to the Camp Nou for only €5 million. Now a 21-year-old, Piqué would no longer play second fiddle, thrust straight into Barca's starting 11 alongside club legend Carlos Puyol. The duo formed a formidable partnership, with Piqué's prior experience in midfield making him a perfect Guardiola ball-playing centre-back. Piqué has now played over 500 games for Barcelona, becoming one of the most decorated footballers of all time, and a 4-time FIFPro World 11 inclusion. Much like Alves, there are plenty of people who have been critical of Piqué's defensive credentials over the years, but once again, most of their claims don't really add up. Piqué might not be a leader, but he's been a brilliant centre-back, and he was a world-class sign by Pep Guardiola in 2008 for just €5 million. Robert Lewandowski. The best signing in world football over the last 10 years, unless I'm forgetting someone, signing Robert Lewandowski on a free transfer in football is roughly equivalent to taking over Apple for free in the world of business. The predatory Polish number 9 is an all-round dream of a centre-forward. Perhaps not your typical Guardiola number 9, Lewandowski drops deep less frequently than the likes of Lionel Messi or even Sergio Aguero, but he's so good as a classic number 9 that even Pep was willing to sacrifice some of his ideals. Lewandowski joined Bayern from Borussia Dortmund during Pep Guardiola's first summer in charge, and his signing all but ensured that Guardiola would win the Bundesliga title during each of his 3 seasons at the club. Following a 25-goal haul in his debut campaign, Lewandowski has scored at least 40 goals in each of the 5 seasons since, and he'll almost certainly make that 6 this season. Last season, the 32-year-old scored a career-best 55 goals in 47 games as Bayern Munich romped to a famous continental treble, which was Lewandowski's first Champions League success. He won the FIFA Best Award for 2020 for his accomplishments, and he might well have won his first Ballon d'Or as well if the award hadn't been suspended due to COVID-19 and the interruptions to football over the last 12 months. How much involvement Pep had in Lewandowski's signing is hard to say. The Pole arrived on a pre-contract deal before Guardiola was even appointed, at around the same time that Pep signed a pre-arranged deal to replace Jupp Heynckes as well. Nonetheless, he became a Bayern Munich player and officially joined the club on Pep Guardiola's watch, and he's one of the greatest signings of all time, so Lewandowski quite rightly takes top spot. That is it for today's video, but thank you all as ever for watching. Give us a like if you enjoyed today's video, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens if you enjoy the channel, or even if you don't. You can also find me on Instagram or Twitter via the username @HITC Sevens on both platforms should you wish to do so.